Hey guys, I've got a treat today at Salud with Robert Gardner. I'm really excited to go over. Is this my first Scotch? Is this the first Scotch review? I think it might be. I have a handful of whiskeys that I'm going to try, talk a little bit about. Um, Scotch was really my introduction to whiskey, even though I've had like Jack Daniels and some other, if I don't know if you want to call it bourbon. I think there's arguments about whether Jack Daniels is truly a bourbon or not. But anyway, um, I got into single malt scotches, assumed that I would want all the crazy Islay, peaty, smoky, crazy, extreme. And just like tequila, I've gone back to like, I don't know, Bushmills Irish whiskey is great. Something that's a little lighter, crisp, clean, refreshing. This particular scotch, in my opinion, is great. I've not had anything, and I'll call it Benriach. I'm not sure if that's how it's pronounced, by the way. Everything I've had from Benriach has been great. I've done like a sampling years ago. It made me interested in their scotches initially, and everything I've had for them has just been really, really great. Wonderful flavors and aromas. This scotch in particular is interesting because it's a triple cask. So you've got sherry, bourbon, and port casks. So you're taking the whiskey, putting it in three different casks at different times, different durations, to give it a certain flavor profile. So there's a complexity to this scotch that I think if you were working with someone who maybe wanted something that they thought was a little sweeter, something maybe a little bit more floral, the sherry in particular gives it a certain sweetness. I don't know if I would pick up the port cask alone if I wasn't told that it had that port color, port flavor to it. So you see how it's like, even they're saying it's got a rich maple honey, cocoa, baked forest fruit sort of taste. Those flavor compounds imported from those casks give it a really interesting flavor profile that I think if somebody wants something that's a little more sweet, um, especially not something that Lefroy in particular, and I have a very limited knowledge of Scotch, by the way. I'm a novice just reviewing what I like. Lefroy is super peaty and smoky, and there is a time and place for that. In fact, the reason I decided to do this review is it's raining outside, and I kind of like Scotch on a cold, damp, wet sort of day. It just seems very, very nice and very fitting. Tequila for me and beer, a lot of it, summertime when the weather is nice. I have a different sensibility with that. So let's go ahead and go with the review here. Let me see if I can get a close up while I pour some of this. One, I really like the packaging. I really like the bottle that this came in. At least got a little cap there, right? Benriach Distillery. The bottle itself is, I think, fairly plain, but it's got a nice label. Was very happy with that. In my case, I have to put on reading glasses to be able to read the stuff up close. But three cask maturation in sherry, bourbon, and port wood for rich smoothness, layered with baked fruit, maple honey sweetness, and lingering oak spice. Let's go ahead and crack this open. It's got apparently what's a real cork. This is a sign of distinction always. And one of the things about good scotch is if I spend more time smelling it than I do drinking it, I usually have a sweet spot for that personally. This is me. If I spend more time sitting there like wafting the aromas across my palate, wafting it across, smelling the scotch, and Lefroy is one of those that I do that with. It just makes me sit there for 30 minutes just smelling the thing. And it's so much easier for me to like mentally parse out sherry, port, bourbon, now that I know. But when I bought this, I was like, it's a Benriach. It's aged for 12 years. I was like, well, we'll try it. I had very little doubt that I was going to find a Scotch that was going to appeal to me, that was going to be something that, I absolutely wanted to try. I get a smell, it's almost like oranges and a little bit of maple syrup to me. Oranges and a little bit of maple syrup. If you don't have a background with port and sherry, I think it would be harder to pick up those notes. But imagine your favorite Scotch crossed with those flavor profiles. And I probably drink more port than I have sherry offhand. It's got a wonderful caramel color. I think it says on the website that that actually comes from the cask itself. Like they're telling me that. Let me see. Apparently won some awards. I don't know much about these events and how those things are determined. It says that the color, I like that they spelled it with a U. I don't know if they're sure if that's British, by the way. Golden bronze, and then did they say whether it's natural cask imparted color? In other words, it makes me wonder if legally are they having to do things. In other words, one of the things that's happened to me with tequila is I'm more aware of additives and what additives are doing to the tequila. I'm wondering now about whiskeys and scotch and like what rules are related to additives and what they can do. So, for instance, could they add caramel color to something like this to make it a different color? Super rich, fruit, berries, um, spiciness. I mean, it's still whiskey in the sense that like Bushmills is still a whiskey, but there's all these floral notes I'm getting off the Scotch that you wouldn't get off of something like the Bushmills. And part of the reason I like the Bushmills is it's very straightforward. It doesn't feel like a whiskey is trying to show off. It's like it's just whiskey doing its thing. Kind of dark honey, not clover honey, something darker. Candied orange peel. There's a stronger, it's not making me think of lemon or lime. It's definitely like candied orange peel. Sweet, smooth, syrupy, spicy. It's got a fieriness going down. Absolutely wonderful scotch. I don't know how much these days the different scotch producing regions of Scotland, Highlands, Speyside, Islay, I don't know how much of a difference the regions play in the production of the Scotch. In other words, local environments and climate changes would affect the Scotch and how it was matured, casked, that sort of thing. I'm not really certain how much that holds sway. Like if you just say it's a Highland Scotch, there might be a general categorization for what Highland Scotches represent as opposed to Speyside, but I'm assuming over time that that actually matters a bit less and less. And I also, again, don't know the laws, rules, regulation in regard to what they're producing. Really wonderful. If you are a Scotch fan and you were looking to turn somebody onto a Scotch that you thought they'd respond to those more sweet, honey, floral, berries kind of flavors, I highly recommend this. I think this is, I don't want to say middle of the road, but I think something like Lafroig, that smoked peatiness that is so overwhelming with Lafroig, I think stuff like that can scare people away from Scotch. And something like this is a really good introduction to a Speyside single malt, just based on my limited experience. I think this is a wonderful product. Great. Absolutely amazing. As I'm reading this, when they said, I don't even know what a sultana is, perfectly balanced with a lingering sultana and a spiced mocha finish. I don't know if I completely agree with that, but maybe my nose isn't good enough to be able to pick up that. See the baked orange? I was correct about that. I didn't get the maraschino cherry, but I could see that's a little sweeter. Smoke level, they announced as nil. Dark berry fruits. Yeah. And also, you see where it says and captures the flavors of Benriach in the autumn? That's what I was saying about various scotches and my tendency to not to want to drink it in summer when it's hot here in Austin. This is it's a mood for me. There are certain alcohols in different settings that I think are better. And this is just me. This is a personal preference. You drink what you like. Don't let me judge. Um, I have to be in the mood to drink something like this. It's very different to me than something like Bushmills. So, for instance, when I'm drinking Bushmills, it's very common for me to have a good shot of Bushmills and then a beer. I feel like they chase each other quite well. I did start today. I'm going to do a beer review next, but I started with the Benriach because I tend to go from liquor to beer. This is a wonderful Scotch. Highly recommend you go ahead and check it out if you're interested in single malts. Highly recommended. Got some fruitiness. If you had a lady friend who wanted something a little more sweet, I think this would be a good option. I think it gives a good representation of single malt scotches with some sweet notes that would appeal to people. Thank you so much to the distillery and the people of Scotland for passing this down. Much appreciated. I appreciate you much, and I'll see you again soon on Salud with Robert Gardner Wellness.